Hello, my name is John McClure of Reverend and the Makers. You may know me from Reverend and the Makers, or even my famous relative Doug. What it is I've wrote a book. It's called The World Is Round. However, my brother Chris.
Hello.
Reverend and the Makers guitarist Ed.
Hello.
And my pal who, for the purposes of this podcast, we're going to call Eric.
Hello.
Keep interrupting me. It's called The World Is Round. I hope you enjoy.
Because the world is round, it turns me on. Because the world is round.
Ready? Chris?
Well,
Ready?
yeah.
Chapter 6. World is Round, Chapter 6. South Africa 2013. Kwaito and the Promise of a Rainbow.
Kwaito, that's the word you have to remember. Kwaito.
I'll hold my fingers up for chapter. Go on, see.
The World is Round, Chapter 6, South Africa, 2013, Kwaito and the Promise of a Rainbow.
Oh, Chris, you're getting ready.
This is got it right. I'm
good.
there now.
See what happens when you don't drink.
I were half cup last other night.
Dogs are omnipresent, everywhere, all over the world.
Dogs again.
Dogs.
Dogs.
Look, do we need to talk about this dog thing?
You're picking up on the same themes I'm picking up on.
You've got a dog theme going on.
I haven't. There's no.
Keith Laird.
There's a dog theme.
No, last chapter were about dogs. Yeah? Because it were.
Oh, right.
And this chapter.
He's thought about this.
Another segue.
Yeah, I'm like a neighbour.
Thematical.
TV
King of
producer.
segues.
Yeah, I love a segue, mate. Dogs are omnipresent everywhere, all over the world. Big wandering packs of them. From India to Thailand to Brazil, they roam the streets, scavenging, scrapping and shagging at such a rate that they multiply year on year. Often they look a bit on the skinny side, shaggy around the edges, a bit flea-bitten perhaps. There's no purebred Crufts pooches out here though. Back home my mate's got a bulldog. It's so inbred that it eaves down the road, sounding like a poorly pair of bagpipes. Generations of bitches mating with their siblings have led many of the dogs in the West into a life of domesticated ill health. Wheezing around carpeted palaces, eating rich processed shite, not meant for human consumption, let alone canine.
Hang on. I don't want to be rude, but I don't really know what's going on.
What do you mean?
He's in South Africa and there's loads of dogs again.
Is that it?
Yeah.
That's all that's happening, mate.
That's all that's happened.
I'm not anywhere, yeah. I'm in South Africa.
Felt like you were talking a lot.
I am talking
He has
a lot.
expanded on that fact massively in the first chapter. But that's
Yeah, okay.
So I'm in South Africa, just, yeah,
Right,
and
okay.
there's dogs. I know, dogs are here.
So you could, we just cut that bit out and say, I'm in South Africa. Right, go on.
I'm in South Africa. Oh, my next thing, he said that, there you go. In South Africa, no two street dogs look alike though. Theirs is a rough and ready world where ownership is communal and the interests of the collective take precedence. No fuss is made of a passing human as they take shade from the midday sun. The dog's life is played out in the small hours, at sun up and sundown, and in the night when the heat of the day is long behind them. The township of Kielitsha, not far from Cape Town, a shanty town with almost 2 million inhabitants, is a street dog's paradise. Food must surely follow in the places where humans muster. And so the pack splits up into smaller patrols, sniffing out the bits of stray meat which might fall from a street-side braai.
Are we back to Rude Dog and the Dweebs?
It's that kind of vibe, mate. Junkyard.
Have you looked that up yet?
I've googled a picture of it to put it in last.
Okay, so you see what we're talking about.
Like
We're back to that.
hard
aren't we?
dogs. Yeah.
What sort of dogs?
Hard dogs.
Size?
Yeah, big. Yeah, big. Eddie, take a picture of it. Yeah, big. Yeah, mid-size. Not
Mid-size, what, all of them? Just
They're all
uniformly
to-
mid-sized dogs.
just every kind of fucking dog
See, I'm
you can imagine.
thinking, you've got some that are like
I imagine South Africa
1
not to be
foot,
small.
and you've got some that are like 5 foot.
Right.
You've got
it's
a
a bit
big
racist, isn't it?
Well, not really. Don't have offended. He gets offended if it's like dogs,
What
though.
did you say?
I expected. In fact, I'm talking shit. Excuse me, I said that.
No, we can focus in on it relentlessly.
Right, yeah. I stupidly said I thought South African dogs were very small. I had nothing to,
Why?
I had nothing to base this
You've
on.
been to South Africa, you've seen him, you fucking... No.
I don't know why I said it. I couldn't even,
You think South African dogs will be small?
Racist, man.
it's not racist.
Where do you imagine big dogs live?
Iceland or something.
In the words of the GCSEs, show your workings.
Yeah, I cannot show my working for the
Fail.
What are you? Come on, move on.
And moving on. It's a hard life for these dogs, no doubt, but one spent closer to their natural state. They're free to roam, to explore. The huge rubbish heap that separates the township from the coastal road to Tatebull Mountain and Cape Point. As our local guide Owen flicks a piece of gristle from his ribs outside the township shebeen we've been eating at, he begins to tell us of the history of the struggles against apartheid, the ANC, the PAC, the police brutality, the necklacing with burning rubber tyres of suspected informants. It's heavy stuff. We listen intently, sat amongst the shacks of corrugated iron, as the animals sniff round our feet in search of meagre morsels.
Do you remember the idea of apartheid?
Yeah,
Like as a kid?
still exists, mate.
I was too young to be. I remember Nelson
Were you too
Mandela. I remember Nelson Mandela getting into power. I can't remember.
I remember him coming out of prison watching it with mum and my mum crying.
Because I remember really clearly my parents talking about South Africa and apartheid and how awful it was and how the cricket team were going or
Mike
weren't
Gatting
going.
in
And all that-
87, 88.
Yeah, all that and just Soweto and things like that. I'm a little bit older than all of you guys, and I really remember it being a thing. You know,
Were
it was
the
like-
anti-apartheid campaigners your parents?
Yeah, it was really.
No, massive fans of it.
But we couldn't get petrol at Shell because
Really?
yeah, because
Oh,
they,
that
because they
was-
supported apartheid. You know, that kind of thing. It was a real. I'm trying to think what the equivalent would be these days. You know, like a real political issue at the time. Apartheid.
You know, David Cameron went on a fact-finding mission, in inverted commas, to apartheid South Africa during the years when there were a trade embargo on South Africa, and also put up Ang Mandela posters at sixth form.
It doesn't surprise me.
Subsequently went on to be Prime Minister of Great Britain.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's
I
harrowing.
digress.
Let's be honest.
The Bullingdon
He's a fact,
Club.
John.
There you go. As our local guide, I've read that bit, Anna, sorry. Meagre morsels. I feel safe here though. Like we're finally in Africa after a week spent in the luxury of Somerset West up the coast. Whilst the views of the coast and the garden route are spectacular, the area feels as though apartheid has never really gone away. You might tell yourself you're in parts of the Canary Islands or Italy, where you're not aware of your own position at the foot of the African continent where the great oceans violently crash together. In a similar way up the road lives another kind of dog. This type of dog rarely encounters his fellow flea bags, however.
Back on dogs.
He's like,
Again.
Back
I'm
to the
using
dogs.
dogs as in a metaphorical sense here, lads.
Oh, okay, sorry.
In a similar way, up the road lives another kind of dog. This type of dog rarely encounters his fellow flea bags, however. His existence is one spent behind expensive gated walls, there to bark at would-be intruders as part of a heavily armed security response system. He is the barbed wire made flesh, permanently angry. This lonely beast is primed and ready. He's taught from birth to beware of attackers. His interactions are solely with human beings, his master, his master's wife, and the black cleaning lady who comes 3 times a week to mop the floors and change the sheets in her immaculate white pinny. You see, apartheid still felt very real to me. The disparities of wealth are based largely on racial lines, and it's a shock to the system. I don't know why, but I expected that after 20 odd years of the Rainbow Nation, things would have improved.
Doesn't this just go back to what we were talking about in the last episode with the English and the Poles? Like it's all down racial lines.
It's not last episode, this is chapter 6 that we're in, like that's
Well,
that's in
right.
future, that in chapter
You know,
13.
in the future when we're talking about
I encountered a terrible bit of racism when I was in South Africa.
Go on.
Do you remember
Was
when
it that woman in that bar? Oh,
Awful.
this one.
Go on.
I walked in? I went Wednesday. We were playing Hull. It doesn't matter if you're on Garden Route or whatever. Or you go and watch Wednesday, don't you? And we were playing Hull, and it was live on Sky. So I was like pretty intent on watching it. And there was we were stopping in quite an affluent area of South Africa. So I walked to this bar.
It's
There's like,
loaded now, aren't we?
And there's like 4 people at bar, 3 men and 1 woman. They were bladdered, Afrikaans, and some were on cricket or something, whatever it were. So I'm explaining, it's always cricket, isn't it? And I explained to this lady that I wanted Wednesday on. This man me at bar, sorry. Finds it me, in due respect to him. And this woman turns around to me and says, "What is this?" I said, "Soccer."
Soccer. You know, hey, I'm watching the soccer.
I just thought I'd call it soccer because I was in South Africa. I said, "It's soccer." Wow, what's up?
Soccer.
It's my team, Sheffield Wednesday. I don't know why I spoke like that.
What?
I went really weird and went, "It's soccer."
It's my team. It's the team I follow.
This is the blue and white.
I turned into Steve McLaren. Show.
Yeah, so I'm basically, and she like spat towards the floor and went, "Arr, arr," back to dogs.
Yeah, he was right upset at Chris.
Arr, arr. I said, "What's up?" She went, "It's a doggy sport." I'm like, "What's it's a doggy sport? What do you mean a doggy sport?" She went, "It's for dogs." That's because football in South Africa is like predominantly black followed. It's a black sport. The black people like are into football.
Dogs.
She called him a doggy. Like, doggy sport. And I'm like,
as opposed to cricket and rugby union, right, which are deemed to be like white man sport.
he's like grabbing me.
Awful.
He's like grabbing me clothes from behind me, saying like, "Don't react to that. Don't react to it. Just watch footy. Or soccer." Yeah, that's how brutal the race issue is.
You see, apartheid still felt very real to me. The disparities of wealth are still based largely on racial lines, and it's a shock to the system. I don't know why, but I expected after 20 odd years of the Rainbow Nation things would have improved. In some ways they have, but aside from creating a small clique of wealthy black people centred around a business community and the ANC hierarchy, the situation feels kind of the same as it would have done back in the 80s. The freedoms to have the same beaches to swim on and restaurants to eat in mean little in comparison to having the best land to farm, the best schools, hospitals, access to services, a job, prospects and all the rest of the luxuries that money can afford a person.
I'm feeling quite depressed by this episode so far because as a child of the 80s, as I previously said, fighting against apartheid, I kind of felt like things were better these days in
Well,
South
they can
Africa.
vote, which is a start, innit? But he's
Jacob,
I've never been to South Africa, but I'd always thought, it's better than it was. Mandela was president. Maybe I just haven't been paying attention.
It
for
is
the last
better
10
than
years.
it was in a lot of ways.
it's better than it was in a lot of ways, in so much as you have the freedoms to do things, but if you're still chained in poverty and you lack like the economics to be able to go in that restaurant that you're now allowed to go into, it's meaningless. And that's what I'm getting at.
So it's
really.
just a case of legislation.
There's a growing black.
It's a more subtle prejudice.
surely that you can't just
Yeah.
change these things overnight. It's gonna take generations to
Well,
truly
remember
change.
that we had that white guy.
close door, John. It's freezing.
When we had that white guy driving to Chalk Place, and he said, "I'll tell you when it'll die, mate." He said, "When my generation die." And he goes, "Same on black side." He said, he says, "So you're not people who haven't lived through struggles," and it's same in Northern Ireland to some degree, right? People who haven't lived through struggles,
First-hand experiences of how bad
it lessens and lessens and lessens, and then you hope over time, money side of things might, but that's the problem. Or money's still concentrating in white hands or in a small percentage of black community. There's a little middle class emerging, but it's not enough.
Like I say, it's depressing. I'm finding this depressing.
Sorry.
But carry on.
Sorry. As we travelled north through to Mpumalanga province, the security that surrounded the white community's homes became even more austere than even in the Cape. These homes looked embattled, like warships on the defensive. I'm sure these people would argue that the soaring crime rate necessitated such measures, but I couldn't help but wonder if I was skint, living with 10 other people in a shack designed for 2, then who's to say I wouldn't go under rob from the big gaff up the road, rather than go looking for jobs that don't exist in the city. Later we visited Robben Island and I thought about Mandela's restraint in never seeking vengeance on the white community. His argument that to hold on to anger would be to keep him a prisoner forever is a noble sentiment. If someone took away 30 odd years of my life, I wouldn't be so gracious in truth. It's true though, people like tweet me shit and I want to punch them. So to take away 30 years of my liberty, I'd want to kick off, mate, I'll be honest. And that's what that's what stopped that place becoming like Zimbabwe or wherever, you know what I mean, Algeria or wherever you want to look on African continent. These places have descended into civil war. And one thing Africa's got in its much to its credit, South Africa is it's not descended into like a civil war, and that's got to be a good thing.
Why hasn't it descended into a civil war?
Because
You think that's where Mandela's greatness lies?
that's where Mandela's greatness lies. Because he comes out of prison, and what he should say is right into the sea, which is what the slogan used to be during apartheid years. Throw the white man back to the sea, or whatever it were. I'm paraphrasing, right?
Get in the sea.
So Mandela, get in the sea. Mandela comes out and he says, no, we'll have a Rainbow Nation, we'll have a Truth and Reconciliation Committee, and I'm not going to hate you.
We're going to forgive. Well, we're going to try and forgive.
We're going to forgive,
That's forward-thinking man there, isn't it?
And even when they killed that guy, Chris Arney, who were like, next guy to come through, he'd have been his logical successor, I would say. Right? Of the next generation. Not the men around him who he went to prison with, but they killed him weeks before, like, they were going to have an election or whatever it were. They killed him, and what they wanted is for it all to go up in flames. And Mandela still kept his cool. And I just think, like, that's why he's a dude.
Did it all start to go wrong once he was out of power?
Yeah, it started to go wrong under Mbeki, were it? Thabo Mbeki. And then Zuma's just, he's got like a
Kicked
cabal.
off again, hasn't it? They had a proper physical fight in Parliament over there.
Yeah, there's a guy called Julius Malema who were part of ANC Youth League, and like, he's like militant voice of all these unemployed people who like...
Who was Steve Biko? He was a person.
Yeah, he were another one in struggle.
He
I don't
died.
know.
He died the day I was
There's a
born.
film, isn't there, about Steve Biko's
There's a
life?
film about him in the
Yeah.
Yeah, I read it. We had it on VHS.
The one who I feel really sorry for, there were another movement, not just the ANC, there were one called the PAC, and it were like Pan-African movement, so he wanted to, like, the whole continent of Africa to come together. Robert Sobukwe, they called him, and you know how they kept Mandela with his mates? They kept this fella on his own, because he were more of a threat, he were more militant. He's like, think of Mandela as Bob Marley, this dude's like Peter Tosh, he means it twice as much. You know what I mean?
Analogy there.
He's on it, this dude, Sobukwe, right? And they kept him in solitary on Robben Island, and I think he'd lost his mind or whatever, you know, like really horrible shit. And like, he's the one I always think about.
You know what worst thing I thought about Robben Island?
Go on.
Because I was there.
Yeah.
With that, you could see Cape Town from like yourself.
Yeah, like a Pritzies, he has freedom.
That's bad, isn't it?
That's freedom there. You're locked up here. Awful.
And so the Rainbow Nation felt like a hollow vision, unrealisable, unobtainable. Owen said it might happen one day when the generation that remembers the struggles on both sides had died and the legacy of hate had been extinguished from the hearts of the people. But so long as the money stayed in the hands of the old elite, I doubted that very much. There seemed to be nothing that truly united the people here, a fracture that would never properly heal. There was Kwaito though. During our trip we'd been introduced to this distinctly South African genre of house music. Emerging in Johannesburg in the 90s, Kwaito uses African rhythms and sounds but goes off in a club the way a house does. Imagine a slower version of garage with African vocals and you're halfway there. We didn't really understand the Totsi language of the vocalists, but it sounded so well pumped from all the motors we passed on the highway that we decided to go to a local record shop and arm ourselves with a few choice compilations.
What's it called?
Kwaito. Kwaito. Kwaito.
What was that tune that we were loving over there?
Fingerprints by
What
Professor.
sort of thing is it?
It's like slowed down garage music.
Does sound pretty badass when it's on, when it's pumping out.
Big bass?
We'll close this episode with a sample of Kwaito so the people listening can get a flavour, but it's choice, it really is. One morning our Chris arrived back at the place, bleary-eyed, looking like death. Turns out he'd been to a Kwaito rave right up on the mountain
It's
at
you.
I got involved.
right up on the top of the mountain at Baden-Powell Pass, where the reservoir that feeds Cape Town sits. Of course he had. My brother has a nose for searching out where to get off his head.
But
and have
hang
it.
on. Baden-Powell as in... Baden-Powell as in...
As in scouting for
Scouts.
girls. Boys. Oh, that's the band, isn't it? Scouting for boys. Sorry about
He's
that.
called... I always thought it was really improbable that the lead singer's called, like, Roy or something. Scouting for girls.
Scouting for girls?
Yeah.
It's called Roy.
Roy? I'm sure he's called Roy or Rod or Rod.
I'm lost.
Roy.
Baden-Powell Pass, where you're
Yeah, I saw that bridge thing, yeah.
Baden-Powell wrote Scouting for Boys, which is the manual that launched the Scouts, am I correct?
Really?
Right.
Oh, I do know that. I
Lord
have, yeah.
Baden-Powell.
Yeah.
And he'd been out there in South Africa as one of Rhodes's colonial dudes.
And it was his pass.
In all probability, being a massive
It was
cunt.
his pass.
His
I
pass.
got me sitting in a
Same
knot
guy?
over there.
Same guy,
No.
same dude. He weren't there at the time. He'd long since.
He were at rave.
Yeah, he were at rave.
Taught me how to do a double knot.
You all right, mate? I started Scouts.
So sorry about it, I was getting a knot. Wait.
Oh dear.
God, that sounds
dear.
terrible, sorry.
Oh wow. Wow.
Snip.
He's on all week at Butlins.
Go on. Let's move swiftly on from that.
Chris had been at a rave, Borden Power Pass. Of course he had. My brother's got a nose for searching out where to get off his head and have it wherever he goes. The party finds him. He doesn't even need to find it. He'd come back buzzing. There were thousands there, John. Blacks, whites, Asians. The first time he'd really seen people from different communities be around each other without the necessity of the servant-master dynamic out here.
I don't
Do you
believe,
know how I
I
got
don't
into
believe
that?
he
Do you know-
said black whites.
No, he didn't say that. He just, all Chris said to me were, there were loads there. And then I said, what were composition of people? And he's telling me that there's...
I'll tell you how I got into that rave.
Go on,
This is how you get into a rave in South Africa.
go on.
They'd all gone home. John had his wife there.
I know, he asked.
Jordan turns into a pumpkin at 10:30, so he didn't stay out. So I stayed out on my own. I went to this bar on Seafront, and I went to toilets, and there were a Bring Me the Horizon poster on toilet wall. Sheffield band.
Check them out.
Went huge in America, didn't they? And I was like, oh, mate, Bring Me the Horizon. From where I'm from, Sheffield, to Stocksbridge. About 2 mile down the road. There you go. And he drove me up
And you're
mountain.
in?
I were into quite a
Nice.
rave.
Nice.
That was my routine.
Was it just you?
Just me and
On your
this
own?
guy. But then there were loads of people up there.
Was it good though?
There weren't thousands, I've exaggerated, John. There were hundreds.
It's not like you, Chris.
There were hundreds.
He once went to Iceland and told me that he'd
Oh, get out
seen
of
a
here.
whale and he never even went whale watching.
I bought a ticket and I got on. Our own girlfriend didn't go.
You told him you'd seen one?
Yeah, because
I was like to look at eight
he
losers.
thought me and Laura would be disappointed they didn't have a cultural experience.
Yeah, so I just said, yeah, sorry, whale, yeah.
Chris come back buzzing. There were thousands there, John, lying bastard. There were thousands there, John.
Hundreds, definitely hundreds.
There were hundreds there, John. Blacks, whites, Asians, the first time he'd really seen people from different communities be around each other without the necessity of the servant-master dynamic out here, without the legacy, the weirdness, the bullshit. All that mattered here was the music. Its infectious power had momentarily forced those present to suspend their normal existence. Here was a unity in the music. Hastily erected sound systems attached to car batteries supplied the beats, whilst ecstasy or mandrex pills were the drug of choice. The World Cup in South Africa a few years before had masked a multitude of issues bubbling away beneath the surface, but this was something else that looked to the future and a different tomorrow. So it was possible after all, not in some idealised version of events where the hatred from centuries of oppression dispersed into the air overnight, but slowly, over time, through the love of music, this beautiful country might well find a way to forge a new future for itself against all the odds. So it might have depressed you, Mitch, but I'm trying to end positive, mate, because there's things like sport and music have the power to transcend
It
that.
gets back to that youth thing again, the next generation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sport and
They
music.
were all cool up on
They're
that
all
mountain.
raving up there on their own.
Yeah,
Like,
there weren't any like.
Is it just a case that a certain amount of people have to...
I do you know what?
Enough time has to pass, so a certain amount of people have to die. So that
That's it.
segment of attitude just...
Well, it's like there's no
disappears.
excuse for anyone under the age of really 60 to be racist in this country. In my eyes, I kind
I
of
agree.
get that
I agree.
mindset of the older
I agree.
person.
You'll forgive
70.
your old auntie or uncle who
I
says some...
can't do not forgive it. No, it's not acceptable. But
Ignore
I can
it.
understand
Ignore it, yeah.
Well, whereas young
Yeah.
people
Whereas
want...
young people
There's no
spouting
excuse.
off
There's
in
no
this day and age,
excuse.
there ain't no excuse. You should know about it, man.
You're right. You're right.
And there weren't any of them. There weren't no doggy vibes on that mountain. Do you not know? Do you know what I mean? There weren't any of that
Well,
attitude up there. They were good. They were a good atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just think that's... I don't know, like, how to end, really, other than, like...
Just
There's some horrible shit in this world, but I think, like, ways to cut through that are music and food. It's the things we have in common, right? Shagging. Everyone shags. Everyone eats. Everyone likes music, unless you like, you know,
sport.
sport.
Right sort of sport, though.
Well, yeah.
Not football.
Not football, apparently.
Soccer.
don't know how to end this. I'm struggling for like a suitable way to fucking wrap up this thing.
Should we just leave?
I feel like I've depressed
Going
shit
now.
out of you all.
We're going now.
I'm going. That is the end. We're going.
Bye.
Bye. Night, night, night.
Spuna my fingerprints. One no bekishima. I guess spuna my fingerprints. One no be bumping dombi. But mama helicopter. Izinja zama voice says ya kunkuta. Ipepanda balkona ngono makoba. Kazi namhlanje waniluba zombupa. Mina nginanda bangipushe zami zokubhuza. Wangitrekela uyazi zokuvuva. Abantu bendawo bayathanda ukubhuza. Manginempimpila ngithi izokhomba. Ake sibona ama fingerprints. Kanti ubani obekhipha imali.